All right, I think we'll go ahead and get started. It is 2 minutes after the hour, which seems to be the time to start Zoom webinars. So for those you who don't know me, I'm Bev Durgan. I am the current chair of ECOP, and welcome to ECOP's First Fridays. And also I'd like to recognize Sandy Rubel. For those who don't know Sandy, she is works in Washington and is the support for ECOP, and she will be helping manage the technology today. So Sandy, if you'd like to move to the next slide. Again, as I said, welcome for those of you that have been at First Fridays before, but those of you that may be new to this webinar series, that First Fridays is organized by ECOP, and it is a way for us to learn about what's happening within the system and talk about new programs and new directions of extension. So it is directed towards the extension deans and directors and also to the 1890s administrators. Today, I'm very pleased that joining us today is ACOP, the Academic Program Section, and they will be joining us today to talk about how ECOP and ACOP can work more closely together on programs that we can find beneficial across our university systems. And also a big welcome to our 1994 land grant extension directors. Sandy? Also, as many of us know, that you can't put a program together like this by yourself. So I'd like to thank the planning committee that helped with this webinar. Al Wasaki, who is the ACOP liaison to ECOP. He is Associate Dean for the College of Agricultural and Life Sciences at the University of Florida. Wendy Fink, many of you know Wendy, Executive Director of the Academic Program Section and APLU Associate Vice President for Food, Agriculture, and Natural Resources, and Damona Doyle, who is the incoming chair of ECOP, Associate Vice President, Oklahoma Cooperative Extension Service, Oklahoma State. So with that, I will be turning it over to our Vice Provost and of Outreach and Engagement, the Director of the New Hampshire Extension System, and that is Ken LaValle, who is the chair of ECOP's Professional Development Committee. So with that, Ken, I will go ahead and turn it over to you. And again, thank everybody for being here today. Ken.
Thank you very much. So just a little bit of introduction about the session today. So the goal is to build from the ACOP and ECOP convening from July 2022 and the March 2023 Learning for Leaders session on workforce development in the cooperative extension system. So just kind of lay of the land's housekeeping. Please make note of questions during the panelist presentations. We're going to be using chat or the raise of hand as we get into that part of the program. Next slide. All right, so why does educational innovation matter, and what is the role that cooperative extensions can play with our academic partners? So some of the issues and opportunities that I think we're all aware of are, the first one is kind of education to workforce pipeline. We're seeing that there's not enough students enrolling in higher education these days across the country. And those that do, not enough of them are graduating with a credential or degree that translates into better employment opportunities and higher earnings. This information I just took is from the National Center for Educational Statistics. We're also out of the era of once and done. I know that when I was in school, you went to college, you came out, you probably went to graduate school, and you were done. After you did your master's or PhD, you entered the workforce and you were completed. Or you did vocational training and you went into a skilled trade and you were done. So the era of once and done is gone. The rapid pace of technology advancements and workforce churn to meet an ever-changing skill-based and skill sets and competencies for the workforce. We can see that happening probably in almost every sector. There's either new technologies coming in, there's new information, new ways of doing business, more manufacturing, AI. So it seems that everyone in the future is going to be in this state of new learning skills and competencies that add on to their traditional degrees. Also, the non-traditional student. So I know, at least in the Northeast, we have a drought of college age youth. So we're really starting to focus on those non-traditional students that need to come back for upskilling or reskilling, or come back for a new degree, a different graduate certificate program. And we know from working with these folks that short-term affordability and convenience is critically important for them. So how can cooperative extension help? There's many ways that we can help bridge each one of these issues as an opportunity. Our networks throughout the states and counties that we all are part of, we can provide career mentorship opportunities for the next generation of extension educators, field staff, as well as many of the other natural resource, agricultural type employment opportunities that we have in our regions that we have networks with and we have deep, strong relationships with. K-12 pipelines to higher education. I would be willing to bet that the cooperative extension system works with more youth from each state in this country than any other organization. And we can be a bridge for pipelines, for career readiness, for higher ed readiness, along with our partners in the academic colleges and schools. Not to mention continuing and professional education programs, which reflects into this non-traditional student issue, which I see as an opportunity, as well as kind of the end of the era of once and done. Next slide. So this is something that I've kept with me ever since Scott from Oregon State University at that time shared this with me. And it's kind of a great visual of the way education is changing in our country. So we have this learning spectrum of access, and we can see where cooperative extension in our formal degree colleagues fit in, from solution-based needs where extension is bringing in research data. We have learning objectives. We're building programs at the local level. But this moves into more non-credit based professional education as things become more and more necessary to maintain licensure, for example, so pesticide safety education. But also these things, and as demand increases, we move from these more longer term non-credit programs into undergraduate credit courses, into degree programs, into graduate degree programs, really in that credit-based space. So I've always loved this learning spectrum of access diagram. Next slide. So our panelists today, I'm really excited myself to hear what they've all been doing. And we're each going to take about 10 minutes to talk about some of the innovations we're doing in our states with extension and other aspects of our university. Ashley Stokes will be our first presenter. She is the Dean and Professor of Extension Administration at the University of Tennessee. I will also be talking about some of the things we're doing with our college student audiences at the University of New Hampshire. And Marina Demi, the Associate Vice Provost for Engagement at Oregon State University, will talk a lot about what they're doing with adult learners. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Stokes.
Well, great. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for that. I really appreciate that framing. And this is something that also really excites me a lot as well. You know, whenever we think about education being a lifelong journey, and I think for extension and our land grant mission, we are so well poised to be able to really advance this and provide a lot of opportunity. And thinking about education as a journey, I mean, as Ken just pointed out, it's not a once and done, and we need to be able to expand how we think about education. You know, it's not just this one pathway that we get on throughout life and we kind of take these nice, clean steps. That's just not really how it works. And life tends to not necessarily follow the same pathway that we've always kind of thought about, and that many of us kind of went through ourselves. And so, you know, with that, life throws in a lot of things. I think the only thing missing in this diagram that could really confuse at least me and a lot of people I know is just put a roundabout in the middle of this, and we'd really be messed up. But it's just not like that. And people need these off ramps and on ramps, but not in a really confusing way that's hard to do. But really, when we think about, you know, this pathway through education, can we create some of these on ramps that you know, through 4-H and youth development, through their projects, through college readiness programs, certificates and stills. So I think there are a number of things that we can do, and many of us are doing at a lot of different levels, and it's great to be able to kind of learn from each other. And I know I'd certainly be eager to hear about what many of you are also doing with your universities. And so, you know, as we create these on-ramps and off-ramps, so when we think about our mission, this is our mission at University of Tennessee. I think it looks probably pretty similar to Extension throughout the country. And so, you know, as we think about that, I think our mission is more relevant and powerful than ever. Whenever we think about lifelong learning, and sometimes we think about lifelong learning as that, sometimes we label that as our more senior or after college group. But really, you know, I think about with 4-H and with our youth programs as well. And that's something at the University of Tennessee that we're really trying to maximize. And so this is something, I was at Colorado State University. I also applaud the work from Oregon State as well. I think both universities worked really well together in thinking about how we take programs such as like a Master Gardener program, where we can take that program a little farther, have certificate credentials with that then meet industry needs, you know, really developed off of what our industries are looking for. But then also, then how can we also have that count as a Hort 101 or something like that? Our faculty are developing not only the curriculum for our undergrad and our graduate students, but then if we look at with our programs that we have in Extension, those are developed by our faculty and specialists as well, and are very science-based programs. And so if we look at the course objectives from something like Hort 101 and look at what those are, and we line those up against something like the Certified Gardener curriculum, you know, we can see how those are going to align within those micro-credentials then to lead into coursework. But then if we think about really what we do, and let's just take youth and 4-H development work, we do that as well. And we have huge opportunities with it. And that is something at UT that we've been doing. Something we just launched is going to be our 4-H for Credit program. Maybe somebody else is doing this. I think we're the first ones to actually make it as part of the curriculum transfer into, and that it doesn't require anything separate from our 4-H youth. As they go through and complete their projects, as they get into the advanced aspects of their project, then what we did with those is then we take those and we line them up to a course, such as our ag leadership and education and curriculum. This one's around interpersonal leadership development. It fits perfectly with this course. And so then we worked with the faculty to line that up. Same thing with our food science project. We worked with the food science faculty to line those up with those credentials as well. And so really where we are with that right now is that we have our various projects. Right now we have 11 projects that now count for college credit. So our faculty determined what the benchmark was going to be for those projects, so that it completely fulfilled the course objectives of the course. When the students submit their portfolio, the faculty review that. If they hit that mark, they get credit for that course. They don't just get one credit, they get the full credit for the course, because our faculty have designed the courses as well as our project areas and these portfolio requirements to hit that benchmark. Now, I will tell you how we have some projects. So if we look at, for example, with forestry, wildlife, and fisheries, there's not great alignment right now. So we're actually going back to the portfolio. We're going to tweak what some of those objectives are within that project, so that then when those students submit that, they're able to get that course credit. So right now they can get up to 6 credit hours with us whenever they complete those and submit them and they hit that benchmark. It's something that's been very faculty driven, very much driven by our departments, but the university sees this as a great way to lower that barrier to access into higher education for these youth. So just some low-hanging fruit that we're also looking at, and I won't creep too much into the adult part of this, but we have really strong master producer programs. And so right now we're looking at, how we build those into those types of credentials, certificates, and to count, because there's just a tremendous amount of learning. And again, it's our faculty that have developed these programs. And so with that, the last thing I'm going to touch on, it's called our Next Chapter program. This is one, I actually put a picture of our Chancellor Downdy Plowman here. She's in Nebraska. The Next Chapter program is certainly not unique to the University of Tennessee, but it's one that our Chancellor has really championed. And so with this program, we're able to work with youth, and we have very set steps that they go through. Again, I know there's some other universities that have Next Chapter and definitely want to give, full credit to that. But as these students go through the Next Chapter program, really our goal with that is to help them be ready for college and workforce readiness. And so again, we're taking these and developing just like we did those project areas so that they can get the college credit for those courses. And then also workforce credentials. Here in Tennessee, manufacturing is huge. It's growing really fast. And it really behooves us to really develop these types of programs so that our youth have opportunity. And again, with that, we really want to create these really kind of easy ways. We want to lower the barrier for access into kind of this lifelong learning journey, that as a land-grant institution, we can create this journey throughout their lives. And they start with us as clover buds, and we want them all the way through our grandparenting courses, perhaps. So we really see how we're working hand in hand with the academic mission of the university. And so with that, education is a journey. It's really not a destination anymore, as Ken had pointed out. And it's just really exciting to see, with our extension programs, how we can connect that, especially through our youth development.
So I'm not sure if we're going to take questions in between each one or go through the 3 panels. Sandy?
Oh, that would be up to you, Mr. Moderator.
All right. I'm failing as a moderator. So I think we should just kind of go through the 3 presentations and then open it up for conversations. But I would like to talk to you all day, Ashley, about what you're doing in this 4-H space, because it is absolutely amazing and something that I wish I could just plug and play at UNH. And I know it's not that easy. So thank you very much for that. I am going to see if I can share my screen here. Right. Okay. So what I was hoping to do is just give a few examples really from UNH and UNH Extension, which are thinking about our undergraduate student workers, for example, the ability to get some sort of credential or micro-credential digital badge, whatever you want to say about it, for the work they do. And then importantly, and I'll get to this, is, we're giving them these micro-credentials as student workers or things that we're learning in laboratories, not as kind of a let's collect a bunch of badges, but more about let's have our undergraduate students be armed with the ability to reflect on their experiences and talk about the skills and competencies they've earned because of those experiences. And I'll get to that a little bit. An example of UNH Extension skill-based micro-credential. And then just lastly, another way that we at UNH have Extension engaging with our undergraduate students through our community internship program. And my guess is there's many of us that are doing similar things. next slide. Let's see if I can get there. All right. So for those of you on the call that may have heard this term micro-credential, digital badge, and you may not know exactly what it is, I'll give you kind of a rundown from UNH's standpoint. So it took us about 18 months to develop and agree on what these were going to be. So we've decided to define a micro-credential as evidence that reflects attainment of a specific skill or competency. And we're issuing them for both formal and informal academic or professional learning experiences. So for credit, non-credit, et cetera. A digital badge is just one example of a micro-credential. So we want to always ensure that these micro-credentials are competency-based and they're approved through faculty and staff governance, and they're meaningful and of high quality, meaning they relate to workforce-ready skills and needs that are being identified by employers throughout the state and the region. So the digital badge is an interesting thing because folks can post them on social media. Many people put them on LinkedIn. The importance of that is when you click on their little icon of a digital badge, it goes to a unique website that specifies what the learner had to do to achieve that. So it gives a great bit of metadata that's really important. So one of the examples that I want to talk about is a new pilot project where at the University of New Hampshire, we're not an enormous college, but we have about 5,000 undergraduates that are work study or they are getting funding for college through a work study program. So they're either part-time workers or work study undergraduate students. And we wanted to think about, well, through their 4 years, they're having all of these working moments, whether they're working in a lab, whether they're working in the dining halls, whether they're working as an RA, and how can we, again, give them meaningful skills at the end that they can reflect on during a job interview, for example. So one of these is communication. So in this, this is what the screen of a digital badge will look like when you click on it for UNH. This is one page. I broke it into two. You'll see the next slide in a second. And it really says that this person, the earner, can articulate their thoughts and ideas clearly and effectively in written and oral forms of professional settings. And then these skills, active listening, respect, written communication, all link back to a database of skills that employers are looking for. So if you click on sending and internalizing feedback, it will give you a list of current searches for employees that indicate that this is important to them. And we use the Credly Acclaim server for our micro-credentials. So the earning criteria for that particular communications credential, we have these different competencies. So one is they understand the importance and demonstrate verbal, written, and nonverbal abilities. You can read through these. The fifth one, they ask appropriate questions for specific information from supervisors and seek guidance when needed. And the supervisors are really important here. So their mentors work with them and we provide prompts that help these conversations move forward and successfully mentor the undergraduate student workers. So the supervisors assess these competencies, and if they achieve proficiency in at least 3 of those 5, they would earn this initial credential that has other levels, but there's not enough time to get into that. So at the very bare minimum, the badge earner completed at least 100 hours of employment as a student worker and worked on these different skill earning criteria. Now, how does this link? Well, it also links to the UNH Extension Summer Internship Program. So in this program, we'll fund between 30 and 40 undergraduate students for 6 to 10 week internships that have to have a community partner and an extension mentor. So that's where this the network strength of Cooperative Extension comes into play here. So the goal of the program is to provide opportunities for students to embrace New Hampshire, which is one of our strategic priorities, by applying what they learn in the classroom to real world needs at the local level. What's unique to this, and I think makes the program successful, is it's a cohort model, meaning that all of these summer students are part of a group of interns who are trained together and are interning around the state with various community partners. And they come together periodically during the 6 to 10 weeks. So in addition to this internship, they can work on earning the digital badge in communication as well as others. Another example, so it's not unusual for our undergraduate students to be working in labs. So one of the credentials that we provide to our undergraduate and graduate students are cell culture skills, which is a performance badge. So for this, they've taken a 5-day skills-focused synchronous course, which provides students with an introduction to the techniques of subculturing, cell staining and imaging, viability assays, cell counting, manual and automated, etc. Again, you can read that. And the skills are important. So they're getting aseptic techniques, cell assays, cell biology. So again, the hope is when they go for a job, they can say, well, I earned the cell culture skills micro-credential and reflect on what that means. I worked in a lab setting, I took courses, I understand the importance of aseptic technique, cell staining, etc. So here's one from Cooperative Extension. When we moved to, when COVID happened, I think everyone went virtual for a period of time. And we found that there were many other nonprofit groups and organizations, as well as teachers and businesses that were having a hard time moving from effective meetings and Teams meetings into an online content. So we provide this Building Your Virtual Facilitation Skills course that provides individuals with the fundamental skills that can enhance an online facilitated dialogue. And if I stop share. So with that, I would like to move to our third speaker. And where are you, Marina Denny?
I am here. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to kind of contribute to this conversation, and hearing what Ashley and Ken are doing in their respective universities is so great. I am 8 months into my position here at Oregon State University. So as I was putting this presentation together, really a big part of it was to better understand the non-credit landscape for adult learners and what we've been doing here at OSU. So to kind of give you the lay of the land, so to speak, professional and continuing education, or known as PACE here, falls under the Division of Extension and Engagement. And that is the primary non-credit adult learning unit that falls under my purview. There are a host of internal and external clients that PACE serves, and there's a variety of services. I'll kind of touch on that a little bit later. But we are not the only non-credit provider. So currently the College of Business, probably this started about almost 5 years ago now, they have their own continuing and professional education unit, which they refer to as CAPE, which can get a little confusing when you have PACE and you have CAPE, and it's just a mashup of acronyms here. But they are solely focused on business and management type non-credit courses for their respective clients. Recently, though, they also acquired the College of Education. They switched from using PACE services to going over to CAPE. There was some revenue sharing issues around that. And so I won't go into the details there, but that's where they're at currently. And then a very, very small portion of the non-credit landscape here is through the College of Pharmacy and their continuing education program, which again is very targeted to their particular audience. So PACE really has the bulk of it. And there has been a long history and a great team of folks doing the work there. When we talk about professional and continuing education broadly, here at OSU, like I said, it is a very decentralized approach. When I focus on PACE, which is what the rest of the presentation is going to be, we provide a range of services, including project management, instructional design, enrollment services, and marketing and communications. And all of that is dependent on the client, whether internal or external, and the need. So, the project management is kind of a given. The rest of it really depends on what the clients want. In turn, the clients themselves are going to provide content because they're the subject matter experts, and depending on the course, the instruction. We do a combination of synchronous courses, hybrid courses, and asynchronous courses. So it is tailored to the learners as well as the client needs. So certificates are one of the things that we offer. And some of these are industry certificates, or they could be internal through faculty. Some of these certificates hold weight for current and potential employees, but for right now, I think the majority of them are more about the perception of the certificate being valuable on a personal learner level, not necessarily something that's directly tied to promotion or upskilling that an employer would recognize readily or give credit to officially, which is where I think Ken's coverage of the micro-credentialing and the badging is wonderful and something that we are aspiring to. There is the potential in a few of our certificate cases, though, to explore transferability of a certificate to maybe a credit-bearing course within the university. And when I talk about future goals, that's really where we're headed. And additionally, some of our certificate courses are broken up into smaller standalone modules that if we were to start using terminologies like micro-credentials, we could restructure it and market it as stackable micro-credentials. So again, lots of possibilities there, just not where we're at currently. A big chunk of PACE's work is with our external partners for professional development and upskilling of their existing staff. So we have a variety of options here where they're just self-paced courses. We have hybrid modules. We have just keeping things on, like maintaining the platform where the instruction is done within the actual company itself, but we're just maintaining enrollment, keeping track of some of the analytics, and just helping with the platform management. Probably our most successful example to date is a series of community health worker training programs that is through a partnership with the Oregon Health Authority. And so in this case, PACE is providing project management, instructional design, and enrollment management services to help track the employees' progress through a variety of modules. And they're also assisting the Oregon Health Authority to apply some of those analytics, those metrics, to employee promotions, internal employment opportunities, and merit raises. So there's this direct connection to promotion potential and movement within the organization based on the learning that is taking place that PACE is helping to support. A third sector of non-credit learning that we currently at OSU have very limited investment in is partnerships with outside contractors. I know that in a lot of places, this is kind of the bread and butter for the non-credit units within institutions, right? Here at OSU, this particular piece has been a source of contention for quite some time, and I'm trying not to air too many skeletons during this presentation, but it's not smooth sailing. And given that I've only been here 8 months, I'm still trying to understand the nuances and the politics around it, but I will say there's much in that vein. At the most basic level, like I said, I think this avenue of non-credit education is often the most lucrative for universities because a lot of what's required of a unit like PACE would simply be enrollment management and marketing. The content, the program design, the registration management, all of the complicated and time and resource intensive parts are really handled and prepackaged by those external companies. So there's not a lot of work or resources that goes in to the unit, but we can put it out there on the platform, we can market it, we can enroll folks, they pay, we get a chunk of that money. And so that revenue generation is good. For Oregon State, however, the rub is with the individual colleges and the worry that the content of those courses either are not reliable or backed by research. And we feel that that's a logical concern. We don't dismiss that. Or they feel that it may be in direct competition with existing 4-credit courses that are being offered to enroll students. So what has been happening for us is we're basically doing this on a case-to-case basis, case-by-case basis to look at, in this case, the one that's up on the screen is something that we're currently offering. It's a data analytics boot camp. It's getting folks that go through the course based certification in 2 very specific software that is being used by Google and Amazon. So they get done with this data analytics bootcamp and they are employment ready if they were to go to Google and Amazon. But we had to go through our College of Science. They had to look at the curriculum. They had to vet it because we have a master's in data analytics. Just because the names are the same, there is absolutely no similarities, but it took us almost 4 months of back and forth with the college for them to even look at this and give us the sign off to be able to offer this through an external contractor. So when we're dealing with a case-by-case basis, and this is so time intensive to get the approval, we haven't put a lot of energy into this yet. And also the senior administration above my pay grade are not really willing to fight this at the moment. So we're kind of in a bit of a stalemate and hoping to maybe explore this a little bit further down the road. So as we continue to strengthen our traditional non-credit offerings of what you might call lifelong learning courses or certificates or industry-specific credentials, we're also looking to the future of developing those non-credit to credit pathways. So hearing Ashley talk about the 4-H, that was fascinating. And I absolutely love that. I think here at OSU, many of you know that we are not housed within a particular college like the College of Ag. So we're kind of uniquely positioned to be able to work with all the colleges. But that also creates additional hiccups maybe, or concerns where we have to go college by college, course by course, and really figure out how things are crosswalked and aligned, depending on what we are doing from the extension side of things or the engagement side of things. So we're defining non-credit to credit as assigning university credit for prior learning, workplace or military experience, professional licensure, continuing education, micro-learning, or some other skill-based instruction. And over the past 6 years, our PACE unit has fielded dozens of requests from faculty regarding a non-credit to credit pathway. So we know that the demand is there. And this is largely stemming from faculty desire to grant learners maximum credential flexibility, right? It goes back to everything Ken and Ashley already said. It's not a one and done, it's a journey, it's not a destination. So how do we make that more accessible and flexible? I think a lot of our faculty members are seeing this as laying stepping stones to a college degree, particularly for those that are working in industries that don't traditionally require a degree. But we know that enrollment is down in 2- and 4-year degree programs. So how do we make this appealing to people? We think that non-credit or competency-based short courses are an attractive option for learners who want to develop job readiness while keeping their options open for maybe a future degree. So we are very much in the early stages of relationship building and exploratory conversations between our PACE unit and eCampus, which is our online 4-credit unit or division. And eCampus is huge. They currently account for about 1/3 of our 4-credit student enrollment and degrees. And there are plans to expand eCampus significantly. So the non-credit to credit piece is a very, very tiny part of their considerations and their strategic plan, but it is important to us. And so we want to make sure that we keep that conversation at the forefront. We do feel like creating a non-credit to credit pathway is going to create that accessible pipeline. We also feel it's going to benefit faculty because it's just another recruitment tool for them for their degree programs. As far as PACE, because we're currently decentralized, we're hoping that if we can find this non-credit to credit pathway, it will cement PACE as the centralized non-credit office at OSU and really give that credence to extension and engagement being the driver for that. And there's lots of other kinks that we would need to work out in order to make that happen, but that's where we're looking. And so there's two different options of what that could look like. The first is an eCampus flip course. So those eCampus courses are 10-week courses. We're on terms, not semesters. And so those 10-week courses could be migrated into a PACE Canvas shell and modified for a non-credit audience. Those modifications can be really substantial where you pare down the content, you reorganize it maybe into a 6-week course, and then we get into complications of how much of this actually aligns. Is it really truly worth 3 credits, or is it maybe only a credit at this point if we do transferability? But we can just have very, very minor modifications. So everything for that 10-week course stays exactly the same, the assignments, the readings, everything, except that we take out the links to our library resources. Right, so those courses tend to look more like traditional academic courses, and they may be the easiest type of course to use when piloting a non-credit to credit pathway, because they're already fully vetted by the curriculum approval process and the content that's developed by eCampus, and they're already integrated into the degree program. So we feel like that's the low-hanging fruit. The downside to it is that they are traditionally academic, and so they may not always represent the instructional best practices that we need for those non-credit learners. And we want to make sure that if we're continuing to talk about accessibility, that we understand learning modalities. The second option is a PACE developed course, and this really is where PACE as a unit is working with the subject matter experts to develop an online course from maybe an e-learning script or other digital materials that they're providing. And it's a little dissimilar to those eCampus courses because the lectures are built using authoring software like Articulate Rise or Storyline, and they may or may not be hosted in Canvas. Sorry. So there's pros and cons to both. The shared threats that we feel, regardless of whichever avenue we go, is going back to what I mentioned about those internal roadblocks due to perceived competition or lack of academic rigor. And our eCampus folks are currently working with Guild to figure out how those non-credit to credit transfers might work and whether or not we can get accreditation for that. That's just one avenue. So again, we might be able to work very directly with the registrar's office and hopefully come up with other solutions there. So that's everything in a nutshell of what we're doing. Lots of ongoing conversations, and I'm excited to hear what other folks are doing and what's worked and not worked for them. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Marina. Stop share.
Oh, sorry. Thanks.
All right, no problem. So now we have, things ran a little more. So we have about 15 minutes for anyone that has questions. So you can either use the raise hand function or type a question into chat. So either a question, again, an idea, if you want to share what you're doing. Looks like, is it Techie Hunt?
Vicky.
Sorry.
No problem. Good afternoon. Yes, your 4-H for Credit program. I have heard of this in 4-H program leaders. One of the Ignite sessions that talked about this. I've talked to our administration about it. How long did it take introducing this concept for it to actually come to fruition at your university there in University of Tennessee?
Hey, well, thanks for the question. Love seeing that clover in your backdrop there. Yeah, it took us about a year, and the great thing is that we started our discussion, once we had some internal dialogue within extension and within 4-H of just looking at and really studying our portfolios, and we just felt like that they were really robust, and the fact that they were really developed by our faculty. Then we went to those faculty and to the department heads. Of course, we first floated the concept with our leadership just to make sure this is something we could explore. We never wanted to get, ahead of what our administration was open to doing and open to seeing. But then we just started with the faculty themselves. They own the curriculum, they own the courses of the university, and the fact that they really developed those courses, and they were the same faculty that we were working with on our projects, and they judged those portfolios every year for us. That's really where we went, and not all the same faculty are the ones teaching our academic courses, right? We have some that are teaching some extension, some research, but being within that department, they could have that dialogue. Then it was just working out the details, and I really found it was wonderful. There was a can-do spirit with the faculty. And I mean, I've been faculty. Sometimes there are things we think, we can't change, but they had such a can-do spirit. And the piece, so that first year we worked out the details. Last fall, we started taking our first students and judging those portfolios so that when they came in, that they would get that credit. So we have that in animal science and our ag leadership and communication. And so those are the 11 that are fully working and functioning. Then this next year, we've taken the next steps to actually get it into the course catalog of the university, which of course, from the faculty, we had to work through the Senate and curriculum committees and all the way up. And that was actually much harder than getting the rest of it put together, to tell you the truth. And it was just, honestly, it was just nuancing the language in a paragraph, but we knew we wanted to get it right. We were willing to be patient. And so it was great. So again, just starting with the faculty, and then of course we've had great interest. We have a lot of our other campuses, other colleges that want to be part of it. We still feel like we're in this pilot stage, but we're going to roll it out to the other colleges next, and to our other campuses within the UT system. So I think those are going to happen within the next year and a half.
Did the students have to pay for that credit?
No, they pay nothing.
Good.
Yeah. And they don't take an extra test. The portfolio counts for the assessment. So there's no additional assessment fee or anything. That portfolio counts for that.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
It's like we have a couple of questions in the chat. So Samira is asking, do you enroll students from different states and outside the US? Is the cost the same for everyone? So I think that might go to Marina.
Okay. Yes, so as long as it's a fully online and not a hybrid option, we are enrolling students from wherever, and the cost is the same.
All right. Laura Perry Johnson, for the micro-credentialing, do you have any feedback from employers and or students as to the impacts of this on getting hired? So I didn't talk about the breadth of the different credentials that we have, but from the very beginning, we wanted to make sure that we were designing these based on the workforce and the employers. So in terms of the undergraduate skills, we're using kind of the NACE 21st century skills, and that organization really is a combination of academics and employers talking about 21st century skills. But absolutely, we have something similar to the data analytics, but it's really around coding. And we have employers in the state that look for undergraduate students and other professionals that have that micro-credential, and we've kind of built a hiring pipeline for these companies in our region. and those that come with their computer science degrees or other formal four-year degrees, but in addition, they have this skill. Another micro-credential that we very deliberately made that connection was in our engineering students and having Six Sigma. We want them to earn that credential over their 4 years of study, 5 years of study. So when they come out, they not only have their engineering degree, but they come out with a skill that they're going to be asked to get if they don't already have. So the Six Sigma or lean management. I don't know if that answers your question, but that is definitely on my mind all the time. You don't want to be creating micro credentials that don't reflect workforce needs. And the only way you know that is by having really close relationships with industry sectors and associations. Any other questions? Well, I have a question for Marina. I'm so excited by your description of, I'm looking for my notes here because I was putting them down. The organization, what is it, PACE and CAPE? Right. So I'm very excited by this because it's been about 2 years in the making. And UNH, we have a similar structure where our extension falls within an Office of Outreach and Engagement that has all of our non-credit pathways. And, we very deliberately looked at the Oregon State framework when we did that. But we're just building out a career advancement and lifelong learning institute that would really be that same umbrella for as PACE is. So my question to you is, when PACE was created, how did you engage faculty and kind of incentivize them to want to delve into the non-credit space?
PACE has been around much longer than I have, so I don't know that I have a concrete answer. I will say that per my understanding of talking with the PACE team, the incentive was pretty much monetary because of the revenue generation split where the faculty are getting, and it's not sustainable for PACE. Unfortunately, so that's something we have to revisit, but there's no incentive for the colleges to change it at this point. So that's another ongoing conversation. But the faculty are getting about 70% of the revenue,
Wow.
which is a lot when you look at what the industry is doing, right? And some of that, especially for our extension faculty that may not have a lot of research dollars or SNS funds, they're using that to supplement a lot of their programming costs. And so that was the biggest incentive for them. Our non-extension faculty, I think some of that was just the recruiting and the marketing pipeline for potential students that might be seeking degrees down the road. And also that desire to share their applied research beyond the for-credit student landscape.
Thank you. Looks like we have a question specifically for Ashley from Amy Harder. I may have missed this, but is there evidence that getting credit from UT is increasing the numbers of youth enrolling that would have gone to another institution if not for that opportunity, or increasing retention of senior 4-H members?
Yeah, that's a great question. A couple of questions, Amy. I tell you, we're still kind of new. I can tell you there's a lot of interest, and our youth are wanting to be a part of this program. Their parents or guardians, they are very excited about it, to say the least as well. And so it is something that, our enrollment has been really strong. And, we're actually having to turn away students, which is unfortunate, but it's something that, we have portfolio submissions. The students are definitely taking their projects very seriously. And I think we are going to see that. But I think we'll have data on that, coming up in the next few years. But there's a lot of interest in it. And I think we're all concerned about that cliff of enrollment. And although things are really strong in Tennessee right now, we want to be ahead of that and not trying to play catch up. So we see this as one of those ways to do that, along with our next chapter program, which especially engages youth that are not always a part of our programs. And we're hoping to reach more youth that way. So stay tuned on the data, but there's a ton of interest, and we're already preparing with a position that's dedicated with next chapter, and another one that's dedicated with this 4-H for Credit program, because we know it's coming.
Thanks, Ashley. Wow, we have a hot button question. I know there's legislation in the APLU responses to this next question, so it's been really concerning for me, because these third-party vendors are the lifeblood of these programs, and I would say most every university has these. So from Caleb, in the case where the university is engaging outside contractors, do the courses come already packaged by the industry, and the university simply offers it to those enrolled, who in turn pay the university? You want to take that, Marina?
I mean, I can only speak for the one course that we currently have, that we've been given approval for that. And so, yeah, the short answer is yes. We PACE signs like an MOU with that outside contractor, and for a certain dollar amount of proceeds that come off of every enrollment through our marketing, because they're partnering with multiple institutions to do the marketing. And so we are using our own CRM platform to track who's enrolling through us. And then that's how we dictate the revenue that comes back to us.
At UNH, we have several of these third-party vendors to do different, we have blockchain, cryptocurrency, UX, UI, a bunch of these third-party vendors that we participate with. So where we've kind of landed is to ensure that we're doing a couple of things. One thing we do with these longer, more rigorous non-credit third-party programs is to go through a third-party accreditation to assign credit for that work that could go into a UNH degree, an online degree or an in-person degree. So we want to make sure we're doing that, so we can say we're not just letting them use our logo. We've reviewed the curriculum, we're engaging with each class that comes through this program, and we're assigning credit or looking into that non-credit to credit pathway. But it is an issue, and it's an important one. So I'm sure there's more to come with this. I think we have time for one more question. So do you work with program participants on how to articulate the skills that they're developing when they engage with particular employers? Absolutely, that's fundamental as well. You've got to have conversations when you're building out these programs to ensure that what the students are doing, you assign some level of rigor, either numbers of hours, having them write a reflection. There has to be some amount of rigor that's put into these credentials, so that regardless of how a student is earning them, they're kind of each doing some core work that can be validated by the instructor. Hopefully that answers your question. I want to thank everyone, and thank Bev Durgan